I'm live. Good morning, gentlemen.
Is staat in beeld?
No.
Wel.
You need to adjust the mic, it's pretty sensitive.
Good morning. My name is Keith Merrington, and I want to talk today about NAS or NASes or whatever you like to call them. This presentation, I will talk about the NAS versus the cloud, RAID, hardware, software, what NASes there are, how to choose a NAS if you haven't already got one. By the way, how many people here have a NAS? Oh God, I'm talking to the converted. The selection criteria, my selection criteria, why I chose a particular NAS, give you some insight into that. How I use my NAS, and how to set up the NAS, the hardware and the software. And with a bit of luck, a demo. It did work when I was looking at it 5 seconds ago, but we all know the demonstration problems. Okay, NAS versus the cloud. First of all, what is a cloud? We all use it, but basically it's your data is stored somewhere. We don't know where. Sometimes we don't even want to know where. It's basically the local server for your data somewhere. With the cloud, instead of being the data on your system, it is just somewhere. It is not a tangible storage location. A cloud, as it were, replaces the function of a local server or computer. That's basically what the cloud does for you. Cloud computing and cloud hosting offer you a simple and convenient way to make space on your own computer and to make it available anywhere. And it's probably the last bit which is most important to most of us. Whoops. This is where we lose the mouse. Come down here. Yes. You see, 15 degrees makes all the difference. If you look at the cloud or look at a NAS, cloud computing has had some damage. Snowden was one of the people who showed some photos of some well-known people, which was not really nice for those people. Scandal. So how do you know what's going to happen with your data? Okay. It is very simple to use a NAS as a cloud, and we call this a private cloud. To make a NAS function as a private cloud, you do need some special software on your system. This software is generally available from the vendor of your NAS, depending on what NAS you have. The software is, for example, if you use Synology, it's called Drive Client. If you use QNAP, it's called My QNAP Cloud. And of course, other people use other names, but basically for the same software. What they ensure, this software, is that your files on your local system are always up to date. So as soon as you switch your system on, that software checks, is your data, your files, the latest version? If not, it downloads them immediately. As I just said. it also synchronizes between various devices. In this way, because the software has already been downloaded, or your files I should say, there's no delay. Whereas you normally, if you have any device attached to your system and you open a file, it has to read the file to your system. And that can be sometimes a problem. As I just said, a private cloud is in principle always faster because it's on a direct network connection. This means that your photos and files and even programs that are kept on your NAS will always be available and you can access. However, there are some differences. Backup. One of the key differences is backup, because with a cloud system, that's automatically done, but on a NAS, you have to arrange that yourself. You are responsible for the backup. Cloud is done by the cloud provider, whoever it may be, you assume. Guarantees are always available.
So you lift the phone, you call Google, and you go, I need a file store.
And they say, yeah, say yes, sir, immediately.
I wonder how that would work.
Well, let's leave that.
I'm just.
Yeah, I really wonder myself. I mean, I keep getting messages that my cloud data is full and I need to buy some more room from Google and getting rid of the stuff, but trying to get it back, I'm not so sure. Anyway, with the cloud, the chance of losing your data are basically zero, unless, of course, you've forgotten your password. And everybody knows what the best password is?
Secret.
No, incorrect. Because every time you put in the wrong password, it will tell you your password is incorrect. Okay. Security. At least with your own NAS, you know how secure it is and you know where the data is. And you know who looks into it, unless you've been hacked, of course. But then you make sure you have the right security systems. Speed. A local NAS, as I said earlier, is always faster. Costs. That's the difference. What's it going to cost? Well, let's look into this for a moment. I've taken as a private cloud, we're going to use the Synology Drive client, which looks like this. Have I missed some slides? I don't know. Here's the cost comparison. I was just showing you the this is what the Drive client looks like on Synology, and you can see you can do sync tasks. This is all on your computer. This is on Windows or Ubuntu. There isn't. Okay, let's have a look at the costs. Now, the problem with costing is for every country it's slightly different. Basically, the price, at least in Europe, is significantly different among countries. And that is one of the costs apart from the initial cost of the NAS. Okay, we're going to take as an example a 2 terabyte cloud NAS and a 2 terabyte cloud system to compare. So, there is, as far as I know, because there will always be exceptions, there are no real free 2 terabyte clouds. So we will look at what a paid service would be for 2 terabytes. I've taken Strato, which is a German company here, so we know exactly what it costs. And this is pricing during 5 years. You can do per month, but I take 5 years because it's the most reasonable period of time. Also, the price will be in the 5 years, at least for the first year. That's the other problem with pricing. If we take a NAS and we assume we're going to depreciate it over 5 years, which isn't really true, but okay, it's much longer normally, but as a comparison. We also assume that after the 5 years, all the hardware and the drives are no longer worth money. Also not quite true. A lot of drives have a 5-year guarantee. So, and because we are going to use a NAS and we're going to use RAID, which I'll come on to later, we need 4 terabytes of space. In other words, double the amount of space that we have in the drives. We need 4 terabytes drives for 2 terabytes space using RAID. We also assume, for calculation purposes, a 50% duty cycle for working out the price of electricity. We're saying that's going to be about 60% of the maximum. Hard drive, Strato. 2 terabyte cloud, they do that for 5 users. You can't get it for 1 user, but it costs initially 15 euros per month, and they do a small discount, which is 36 euros from the year. So the total price is 900 minus 36 euros, which comes up to 864 euros in 5 years. I'm not going to talk about rents, costs, and everything because it's not really important. Okay. What about your NAS? I took, for example, a NAS DS223, which has 2 terabyte hard drives in them and is available. It has 2 terabytes, sorry, it's a nice mouthful. And that is available in Holland from the company MBB for 389 euros, including costs and shipping. So, energy. If we look at the Synology and take a 50% duty cycle of the NAS, which uses 15 watts, and we assume that in 5 years, that is 8,760 hours in 1 year, and in 5 years, it's going to be a bit bigger. In other words, we're going to, if we are looking at, I took 32 cents. The price has gone down recently, but, well, doesn't make much difference. That comes out at 210 euros for the 5 years. So, total, just under 600 euros, which is about 265 euros less than if you're using a cloud service. So financially, it's worthwhile doing.
In the 15 watts,
Wait a minute.
included.
Oh, just a minute, you need a microphone. Otherwise, nobody knows what you're saying, and I can't hear you.
In the 15 watts, are the drives
Yes,
included?
yes, this is included.
If you have multiple drives and
This is 2
spinning
drives.
drive, that's probably 5 watts
Yes.
each.
But the
SSD
50%
might be better, but then
no.
expand more expensive.
I would never advise anyone to use an SSD in a NAS, basically because cost and data is not advisable. I mean, you can get a 12 or 24 terabyte hard disk, but you can't get that on SSD. You can use an SSD, for example, as caching. But then again, you have to think, why do I need a very fast connection? You wanted to say something, Alex?
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to argue with your numbers. I just thought I'd mention that the cloud service, private cloud service I use is $10 US a month for 5 persons. So maybe.
Yeah, well,
maybe
but
more cost-effective.
I think what's your price of per kilowatt in the US?
In Canada, I'm not sure. It's not particularly bad. We're mostly hydro.
Yeah, but that's the point. If I in Germany, you know that the price of electricity is a lot lower. So, but take these as global ideas. It is not more expensive. That's basically what I'm saying, and you have everything under control. Yeah.
You say it's not so expensive, but you're forgetting your backup. So you need an extra USB disk for the backup.
Yes, that's true.
Maybe two.
Maybe two. That's true. This is just a global comparison. If I, you know, I also say at the end of the 5 years, it's worth nothing, which is also not true.
No, sure, but you're comparing the cloud backup with
Yeah, just to keep it simple.
with backup, with the NAS without backup.
That is true. That is true. Back behind you.
Hi. The thing is that I use the NAS
Yes.
with RAID 5. And
Oh, RAID 5,
I don't
okay.
care about backups.
Okay.
Okay?
But then you
Because
have more.
If
Yeah.
one hard disk fails,
Yes.
I just
Pull it
change
out.
the hard disk and everything is functional. Of course, it's much more expensive than
Yes.
that one,
Yes.
but for me, it's the best cost effectiveness
Yeah.
thing.
That's true. But let's be honest, if you have two hard disks, which we do in this, and one fails, you still have one.
Yes.
I know.
But you have 50% of space
Yes.
available.
Yes.
And in RAID 5, you have
Have
about
more.
75%.
Yes. Correct. Correct. But I tried to keep it
Choices.
simple.
Choices.
But you are right.
And RAID is not a backup.
No, RAID is not a backup. That's true.
Yeah.
This is a little off topic, but have you actually tried pulling out a hard drive?
Yes.
Yes.
And seeing that it works?
Yes.
There are two kinds of
Hot swap.
hot swap or non-hot swap. If it's non-hot swap, you have to turn it down, take out the disk, and put a new one. If it's hot swap, it's working. You take out the disk, you put another one, and everything works, and the RAID is
Rebuilt.
recalibrated again on the fly.
And you've done that?
Yes.
Okay.
Me too. And I've still got my data. At least I did have half an hour ago. But it's true. But I'm trying to, people say, well, isn't the NAS more expensive? Basically, no.
Sorry. In that case, I think that the choice is that if you go to the cloud, you just pay $15
Yeah.
per month.
And you don't have to do anything.
Yes, and with the NAS, you have to spend the money
Initially.
upfront.
Yeah, sure.
Or if you buy it in monthly costs,
Yeah.
you have to pay more because of bank charges.
Yes,
So
it's true.
that's the difference.
Yeah, but I tried to show that you're about 20 to 30% cheaper with a NAS in this configuration. But
Of course, you could always use both, like me. Then what is that?
yeah, yeah.
Belt and suspenders.
Belt and braces, we say.
Okay. Sorry. That's
Suspenders are what the
Yeah.
women wear. But I can understand.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying one way.
Of course, with the cloud, the problem is you don't know where your data is.
That's
That
the,
can be, especially for Europeans, a big problem.
yes, yes. That is the reason why I chose the German version. You know at least which country it's supposed to be in. Okay? But a NAS can do a lot more than just the cloud. So that is another advantage as far as I see it with a NAS. You can store programs, films, photos, porno, whatever you want. You can provide automatic storage and backup. You can use it as a media server for your TV. You can even host applications, websites. We seem to have a problem with the lighting.
It just switched on by itself. Nobody pressed the button.
He did.
Oh.
You can store images from your security camera, which is a little bit difficult on the cloud. It does work, of course, but there is a lot of delay. I don't know how many people here use a video doorbell. Nobody? One person, okay. At least our systems that we seem to have here in Europe, you press the doorbell and in the advertency they made, then you can say, oh, leave the packet behind the car. In actual fact, the guy's gone long ago. It takes about 6 seconds delay. It's terrible. Glenn.
So, yeah, so.
Microphone, please.
Yeah, we got it. All right. I'm hoping this is on. So, at least, this is a privacy issue between EU and US.
Yeah.
All right. Mine turns on with motion. 'Cause I
Oh,
think
yeah.
the cats
Okay.
walk on my
Yeah.
porch. So that's the difference. Now, I have backup cameras that now
Yeah.
I'm thinking,
Yeah. Well, I understand what you're saying, but my problem was somebody presses the bell, even if there's motion beforehand and it starts recording, the delay is about 6 seconds between me talking to them and them hearing me, or vice versa. You know, so you get these advertisements where the guy's trying to break in. He's been through my whole house before I get a warning. Anyway,
that's
it's
why I have a German Shepherd.
and if you want to have a dog that really will attack people, don't feed him much. So your NAS can do more. It can store your security images. Also, you can get at them. Nobody else can see them. It can manage a lot of things. IoT devices. You can turn on your thermostats at home, save your winter bills or what have you. It can host a virtual machine. So all of this you've got as an add-on to your cloud. So I think a NAS is a worthwhile investment, which is the reason I have one. Okay, what is a NAS? The NAS is an abbreviation for Network Attached Storage, which means basically you've attached storage to your computer. But as I say, it is more than just adding a medium to your computer. Thank you. It's basically a small computer in itself, and it has lots of space for hard drives. You can also use VPN from your NAS as one of the other options. Yes. Nearly every NAS offers the possibility to set up a RAID. But what is RAID? Because we all know all the versions and all the types, but basically it is a redundant array of disks. So you're using multiple disks to store the same data, or not, because RAID doesn't only duplicate. I'm still here, guys, sorry. The type of RAID determines the number of drives needed and also the final storage that will be available. In principle, we have two types of RAID: striping or stripping, depending how you pronounce it, and mirroring. But there are also combis of these two, so it's not straightforward always. This striping is called RAID 0, And basically we divide the data over more disks. It looks like this. So here you see block 1, block 2, block 3, 4. If you have more disks, then there's 1, 2, 3, and so on. But you can feel the problem behind this. If one disk dies, you've lost all your data, or at least 50% of it. But it does have an advantage. It's twice as fast. So, as I said, the main advantage of striping is improved performance. For example, if you have a couple of disks, 3 disks doing 200 IOPS, you've now got 600 IOPS, 3 times faster, basically. I say basically, otherwise somebody will say, no, it's not quite right. There's overhead.
It's 598.
Yes. The biggest disadvantage, I said, if one of them goes down, you've lost everything. Mirroring. Okay, this is the other side. A mirror, so a copy, an identical copy of the data over different disks. It is the most, RAID 5, as you said, is the most common and safest value of RAID. And that's because it's high performance and also backup potentiabilities. RAID 6 is similar to RAID 5, but with double parity. And this is the problem. There are so real types of RAID, and one does this and one does that, and you have to decide for yourself which you think is the best. Basically, it means you're going to have to spend more on disk hardware. In the event of a disk failure, you pull out the disk. If it's hot swappable, you put in a new, and it starts rebuilding the RAID data, but the data is still available to you. The question is, what is the performance during that build? Depends on the NAS itself, depends on the hardware you have. The point is with RAID 1, for example, where you have in 2 disks that data is mirrored on both, then you're losing the capacity of 2 disks. You only have effectively 1. Normally, on a RAID, and of course there are exceptions, you need hard drives of the same size. Sometimes they even ask for the same model and version number of the disk. But that's going more and more away. The requirements for exactly the same size or model is removed with a so-called hybrid system, such as SHR, which is the Synology name for a Synology hybrid RAID, or JBOD, which you've probably heard of, just a bunch of disks. And by using these types of RAID, it is a lot easier to expand your system because you don't have to meet certain requirements. So you can go from having 2 terabytes, you add an 8 terabyte, but you think, I really need the room, no problem. Okay, here you can see the types of RAID, the number of drives you use, and you can see what sorry, I was going into Dutch, and you can see eventually how much storage you have. You see other RAID types. I won't go into them because it's not important. The basis is you search for the right one for you. Okay, NAS hardware. We said that NAS is a computer. And like any computer, it requires hardware and software. The hardware in a NAS consists of the CPU, obviously, which can be as small as an atom or as low CPU power as an Atom, and can go up to a Ryzen or what have you. It just depends. The memory is fixed, or you can add or exchange, not always. You have connections. You say, why do I need connections? Well, at least you need a network connection, of course, but you also have USB, where you can make your backup on, for example, SATA to serial ATA, external, and to add more data on, or an additional box, and HDMI. And of course, there are a number of slots where you put in the hardware, the disks. 1, 2, 4, 5, the number just depends, and you should get as big as you need. Not all NASes allow expansion, depends on the model type. Generally, a NAS is not sold with hard disks. So if you're buying a NAS, don't think that's the price. You have to buy your hard disk, but it gives you the flexibility of saying how big it's going to be. And always start with a bigger disk than you need. It's like your wallet. It should be bigger. There are dedicated hard drives for a NAS, because a NAS is generally on 24/7. And because the hard disks are close to each other, they may interfere with each other. Vibration may be a problem. Shouldn't be, maybe. There are two main suppliers of NAS drives, Seagate and Western Digital. Seagate has the so-called Iron Wolf, and Western Digital the Red, with capacities at this moment from 1 to 26 terabytes. Both suppliers have Pro versions, and generally the Pro versions have a higher rotational speed, which basically means data can be transferred faster. Also, the warranty period for both Pro versions is 5 years instead of 3. The price range from 80 to 600 euros. Of course, in the States, they're a lot cheaper, unless they're importing them from China. Sorry about that. A Pro version is sometimes mandatory, depending on the NAS. The reason for that is when there are more drives in a, what do we call it? Box, case. Thank you, thank you. The more chance there is that one drive interferes with the other with vibration. Seagate offers a free data recovery service on the Pro version, and IHM, which is the Iron Wolf Health Management System, which keeps track of what's happening on the hard disk. So it's not a backup, but it gives you a sense of security, right? Sorry? Yes, of course they are. Got to get it somehow. Software. Most operating systems are in fact Linux as the basic, but modified. You have various types of file system, XT2, XT3, JFS, BTFS.
XDS.
There's various, but BTFS is probably the best with regards to security and reliability, as far as they tell me on the web, but it's like everything. You don't know until it goes wrong.
Yeah.
You have most network software protocols are supported. SMB, AFE, NFS, blah, 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 blah. All these are, but some are on some systems and some are not. You have a lot of applications, for example, Plex, which you probably know, which is basically for streaming, cloud applications, and so on. The support with the apps for various operating systems. Do I dare put this down? Yes. So, for example, you have systems for Linux, for Windows, for Android, for Apple,
But not for iOS.
not for macOS, but I will come on to that. Basically, there's a lot of software available, and it does a lot of things. Basically, we can classify NASes in general by the number of slots they have, as a first guess. The smallest has only one disk, so that doesn't allow any RAID system. It's basically a very simple family system.
An external.
Yes, an external disk drive, basically. As I say, those were 2, 5, 6, 7 racks full of disks in the cloud servers of Google and so on. Some NASes you can connect an extra cabinet, so you can expand it. So if you're looking at buying something, try and think ahead, you know, which we generally don't. As I said, connections are important, network, but most systems generally have about 1 gig or 2.5 gig. But the question is, do you really need a fast network? What's the rest of the network in your house? Sorry?
Very good.
Very good, yeah.
You probably need,
Microphone, please.
you probably need a better network when your files are huge, like a CAD system or Photoshop something.
Yeah, but if you're using a cloud service, it's already on your local system.
Yeah.
But they may be too big for your local system.
What happens?
Yeah.
It's always in the local system.
Yeah.
And after you work it, you put it on the NAS.
Yes. It depends what you're doing, how you use it, of course. And there are more ways to roam than one. You can sometimes upgrade the NAS either via the USB port, which is available, or they sometimes have plug-in cards in the cabinet. But again, this is not for the cheaper versions. USB, as I said, you can use for extra storage, but also for your UPS, because you don't want your NAS to crash because the power goes down.
Is it for you?
For you. For a long time.
A small break.
No, I don't hope so.
Oh, that's the big break. Normal service will be resumed as soon as possible. Remember that on the TVs in the past? Okay, if you want to connect a screen, thank you. If you want to connect a screen to your NAS, you will need, for example, an HDMI connection. Most NASes you connect via your web browser. As I said, processor types vary enormously, so you have to think what you're doing with your NAS. You can use an SSD as plug-in mainly for cache, but if you put it in for a hard disk, your bottleneck is going to be your network connection. So some NASes support the media connection, the media option. Not all do. And you really have to go through all the specifications sometimes to find out it's not in that model. They always tell you what's in it, but not always what's not. Memory expansion is sometimes available, not always possible. Often as not, it's soldered in and you're stuck with it. Model naming is also sometimes a bit strange. For example, I know, and I found this out when searching for some stuff, that the Synology DS223J and the 223J Plus are different. You would think the plus means more. No, it doesn't. It just means you think it's going to have more. Basically, the difference is one has 1 terabyte and the other has, 2 gig, and one has 1 gig. So model naming is rather like, you know, you get a GTI car or a truck, but it doesn't say that the truck is slower than your GTI. Okay. Oh, this is very difficult to see, isn't it? Anyway, this is some of the, this is Synology 1 bay disk station. This is, again, a 1 bay NAS. It's very difficult to see here, but just to give you an idea, this is a 4 bay NAS, but what you see is difference in pricing, difference in processors, difference in network connection. Even more various types. This is an old version. You can see it on the way it looks. You even have rack servers. So everything is available. There's lots available. How to choose your NAS? Before buying, you need to ask yourself a couple of questions. Do I need it or do I need it not? But basically, is the brand of your NAS important? Should it be important? There are these main versions: Synology, AccuStore, Netgear, Ugreen, TerraMaster, Ubiquiti, and there are probably others. The numbers in brackets here are shown the version sold in Europe. And what you see is basically Synology and QNAP.
It's one missing there. It's Buffalo.
Yeah,
Very
true.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, personally, as my personal report, I only choose Synology or QNAP because of the availability, and not only that, but also the support behind it and what you can find out on the internet. I'm not saying Buffalo is not a good make, but I got burnt years back. I had a NAS, and I'm trying to remember the name. It's in one of the slides, but I can't remember now, of course, and I have to do this. But okay, I'll come to that later. I had a NAS, and I thought it's great, and all of a sudden, hey, I can't connect my PC to my NAS. The PC had updated the connection software, SMP. Remember 1.0? They changed it, and my NAS hadn't got the upgrade, and they didn't make an upgrade.
Exact same problem with my first NAS. It was like so.
Yeah. Mine was, I remember, Amiga. And it was nice. It wasn't expensive. Did what I wanted, but like everything. So, okay, what kind of network do I have at home? So you know what I use. Maybe it helps you. I've a NAS with a 2.5 gigabyte network card. It's connected at 1 because I have to upgrade all my switches and all the rest of the rubbish. And it doesn't really make that much difference. You think what sort of ports your NAS should have? As I said, all have USB mainly, but again, do you need connections? eSATA, that is necessary if... Is Roderick, I suppose? Sorry. I could ring back in 5 minutes, of course.
Yeah, it's a tax office.
That was the wife. She didn't know where I was. The eSATA connection is basically to connect one cabinet to another cabinet. So if it doesn't have that, you can't expand later. So ask yourself, are there any specific features or apps you need, like a media player? Do you need, for example, in Synology, backup for business? It's not available on all devices. So what do you need? Do you need certain file formats? Because not all devices support all file formats. So basically make a checklist for yourself. Maybe there's something specific I haven't mentioned which you need, so go through the list. Okay, what's my choice? I wanted a system that basically could provide me with a private cloud. Well, that's almost all of them. Back up my data both locally and remotely. How do I do it remotely? Be a central point for all my distributed files. Store the video from my surveillance system at home. Support and be able to share files with Arca and Linux. I can log in with Arca OS using Samba onto my NAS. No problems at all. Linux does it, my telephone does it. The telephone and Windows and Ubuntu give you more options. Whoops, that's what I said. I also wanted to be able to access my files over internet. Like if I'm here, can I get my files because I got the wrong one with me? And be able to synchronize with a remote NAS. That's how I do my backups. I have a remote NAS. Okay, what I have are two Synology drives, one at my home, which is this model. It's basically the best one. The other one I have with my son-in-law. He lives about 20 miles away. So I send data to that. That's my backup because I don't want it physically in the same place. And it works perfectly. Basically, I have how many have I got? 4 terabytes, which gives me 10.5 availability with the RAID configuration I'm using. He's got one that's a little bit smaller, of course.
It's your old one, huh?
Sorry?
It's your old one.
It is my old one. That's the way it works. I've got something for you, I told him. You look happy, look at it. It's almost new. But it's a win-win situation because a backup at home is not the solution. You have a fire, then start looking, where are my fire insurance data on my hard disk that is now no longer a hard disk. Available programs, there are a lot from Synology. As I say, these are basically the Synology for on the phone, drive, file, camera, so I can get on my phone. Now there are more, but
That was the difference between drive and DS5.
yes, I was wondering that myself. So that's the advantage of doing a presentation. You start to read the manual. So that is basically the difference. But I mean, basically, I wanted something which I can get the information if possible. And of course, photos. On Windows, you have the so-called assistant, which helps you with the IP address of the NAS. Drive client, which synchronizes it. Active backup. On Ubuntu, you have the similar programs. An assistant again. Op Arca, yes. No programs in Synology. This is why I chose Synology. If I get this right again. Sorry guys, this is it just has to be in the frame. It's the market leader in Europe. It is a reliable brand. As I said, I had problems with Omega in the past. It's relatively easy to configure. There's lots of information on internet. So, I mean, if you don't know how, look on internet and someone will tell you exactly how to do it. Problem is sometimes those are on earlier versions of the software. So it meets all my requirements. So that's why I bought it. Synology, for your information, also won in Europe the CT Readers Award. CT is a well-known technical manual for Europe. What I did was I have different users connected for the PC. So every PC has a different address connection. Because I found with Windows, sometimes it didn't like having the same usernames. But that's Windows. I also have my NAS connected to my camera. There's a leak going on again there. You didn't see it, but I did. I don't like Wi-Fi for security reasons, but so I have the Drive client on Windows and Ubuntu with Arca Samba. The mouse seems to be going the other way around. Okay, now I want to talk about the installation of a NAS, if I'm not boring you too much. You haven't got a choice. Yeah. Okay, installing a NAS, there's basically physically just installing the hard drive, putting the plug on, putting the socket into the wall, and then it should start. Plug in a network cable, unless you have an HDMI version, connect it to your router, and it should all find itself. The wait can be sometimes longer than you expect with a PC. It can take a number of minutes before it's started up and done everything. Next, you have to install the software. On the NAS. Yes, we're talking about the NAS. But first of all, you need to know what the IP address is on. You can't do bugger all. As I said earlier, this is very nice. You probably can't read it very well, but it's available from Synology, and it finds Synology. It finds your Synology. It's a chicken and egg. You first of all have to enable it on your Synology. Maybe on some they've already done it, but basically you have to enable it, so you can't find it. But there are this application, which is the Synology Assistant. You can load it into Windows or Ubuntu, and it should find the address of your NAS. Another method is, of course, open your browser, go to your router, look in the tables and find the name of your NAS and the IP address. Sorry, I've got a different screen all of a sudden. Oh, yeah, okay. So you've got your IP address. You can enter your IP address in your browser, and then you can start doing everything. I'm moving here, but not there. Yes, okay, the software installation. So via the web browser, IP address, you get the address of the NAS. You should see some form of welcoming message, depends slightly on the model and everything. And firstly, you'll be asked to install DSM, which is the Synology Disk Manager. You'll probably get a nice message warning you about overwriting your disk, but that's not important if it's a new system, only unless you've been replacing the disk. You get basic information to write, basically the server name, the user's name, choose a password, and confirm the password. On Synology, it gives you an idea how good or bad the password is. Remember, perfect. Next, you would ask for update policies on the Synology. It asks you what you want to update and when. Now, I select automatic updating, but only at night, because otherwise you're halfway through and it's telling you you have to wait. Smart, I switch on. Smart is the technology for the disks, as everybody should know. It then asks you Quick Connect. That is a special connection for Synology. Basically, it allows you with that technique to find your NAS via the internet and connect to it. It's basically a DNS system for Synology. It just gives you a name that you can use. Obviously, switch network location. This is the find thing. So now you can switch it on to find it again. You'll be asked about the update policy, whenever and everything, you do it. And as I said, I only do that at night. This is what the first screen you get on the Synology. And you have to go to the storage manager, because that's where you set up your disk. What type of RAID am I using? I found it a little bit confusing. Where is it on all the things? I went to the control panel. Of course not. Not in a control panel. So if you use this button, you get this, and you can then select your storage manager and go further. I chose the disk, the type of solution, SHR, for my system. I use BTFS, which is available on the DS16, but not on the DS480. Different models. And after I had created the users, I could create my users and folders. And this is basically what I did. I created groups for myself, my NAS, myself, my wife, my grandson, and so on and so forth. Keep it separate, because otherwise everybody does everything and you don't know what you're doing either. I have administration privileges. My grandson does on his local NAS as well. So if there's a problem, I can tell him, do this, and he does. The guest administrator's accounts you disable because they are known problems for security. I didn't initially use 2FA, and I would advise people when setting up not to use 2FA, because you then got more problems at the same time if something doesn't work. It just adds a complexity level. Once you've got everything working, add it. As I said, I have specific folders. I have Quick Connect. On the other remote NAS, I also have Quick Connect, but I made sure there I determine the disk quotas, because otherwise my daughter will have so many photos and I can't do my backups. You know the problem. Okay, 2FA, how does that work? Well, everybody hears two-factor authentication. It means you just have an extra check. Synology uses your telephone to verify. It's used via a special app called Secure Sign In. It is so secure I can't make a photo of the app itself on the phone. So I had to make a photo of a photo. This is the logo. It's available on the App Store. Basically, you get an approved sign-in message on your telephone when you're logging in, or a verification code, which is called the OTP, one-time password. That's the problem with all the abbreviations. He said, did you get your one-time password? I said, I haven't had a password. You know? OTP also can work when there's no internet service, which is handy because there's also the possibility of hardware security key. I don't use that. But for this, your DSM on the NAS has to be 7.0 or higher, which is the usual problem. Keep your software up to date. Yes?
Do you have to do this every time you want to store something on your NAS?
No. No, it's just to log in.
Yeah, you have to log in every time if you want to store something?
From internet.
Oh, internet, not interesting.
Thank you. Good, you're awake. Okay. Now, can you read it? No. 2FA is not required when accessing your NAS system via Samba, for example. No, otherwise you can't ask anything. So that's very handy because otherwise you go crazy. This is what the app looks like. I have two fields. One is for my Synology account because that's also a two-factor authentication. And this is for my DS60. You said, I thought you had two DSs. Well, by my son-in-law, I keep that just easy because it's just going to be a problem. Either I don't have the 2FA or they ring you up. And, no. So after you've loaded the sign-in app, you have to go to your NAS. You go to the DSM. It shows you a QR code. You take your phone. You make a copy of the QR code, and then you're linked together. It's basically exchanging keys. As I said, you select personal account and then ask for a passwordless sign-in. Said you get a QR code. You have an option to set up. Yeah, I'm sorry, the color doesn't come out here well, but the blue was even worse. To set up an email connection so that if something does go wrong, you can get a special password via email and still get into your NAS. It's advisable to do that. It's called a one-time emergency code. I have had to use it before because I screwed up. It's very easy. So that's how you do it. Okay, Quick Connect. What is Quick Connect? As I said earlier, that is the ability to connect to my NAS over internet. Initially, I didn't put this on, but you can as soon as you've got everything working. You can do Quick Connect and you set up your own ID. It gives you two methods. One, via HTTPS Quick ID, and then you put your ID. Or the other one is basically the same, and when I get a screen, I then have to enter my name. But it's basically the same system. I told you there's a lot of programs available, also from the community. And now the demo.
Oh boy.
Unless you had any questions first? You do?
Yeah, for the 2FA login, is that only if you're trying to log into the DSM specifically?
Or to your Synology account. I have two. One, if I'm going to my Synology account to do something, or if I'm going to log in to my NAS from internet.
Into the DSM.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, or into the NAS, yeah.
Well, when you say into the NAS, like I have OpenVPN installed on my NAS.
Okay,
That's how I
that's
connect to it.
okay. That's another method, isn't it? Yeah, I'm talking about the standard run-of-the-mill log in and connect. Yeah. Okay. Now we try to go to the other screen.
Is that the new look of ROS?
No. Oh, you see, I'd logged in and everything, and as often happens, you think, then I'm ready for you guys, and yeah, but I don't know if you can see at the top, but basically it's a quick connect to. No, I didn't think. I try again.
Secret password.
Oh, sorry.
You can do it, you can do it.
I put this here because the bin's going to go open, my telephone's going to go in it. I tried to duplicate my screen. Yes. Yeah, but I think he's got another one because this should be it. It isn't, is it? Because this is a blank screen. I think this is one of the virtual screens come in here. Come on.
Sorry, mouse pointer.
No, must be the next one. No. How many virtual screens? I don't want a new one. It should be one or two. Yeah. No, we do the easy way, restart. In case I press the restart button. And with a bit of luck, I should then get the right screen, but I'll have to log in again. So I can show you how I can very easily get into my NAS from here. Oh, I'm going to have to, oops, otherwise I get, okay. As default, of course. Sort of idea. And Moira's not seeing anything. Plugged into my UPS via a USB connection, and that works. I also have the light in the cupboard also connected to the UPS, because if something goes wrong, I can see where the things are. Local. Any ideas how then?
Clone desktop instead of
Yeah, it's oh, I think it's this one. No. Extend.
Duplicate.
Okay. So. So, next year we get a table and chairs, right, guys? So, I'm finding the IP address, but that's only for a local IP address. So we'll go on to No, this is always. Oh, my battery's running low. Who's pulled out my plug? Yeah.
That always happens when you need it most.
Yes, I know. Just about you're about to save, and it says sorry. Yeah. Well, it has a UPS. It's called a battery, but okay. Now, basically, what I do is I type in quick connect. I get my quick connect ID, which happens to be my name because I can remember that. Two-factor authentication, I'm a big boy. Oh yeah, now with the telephone, because this is what happens. You have to have your telephone. Because all the other apps are open, aren't they? Voicemail, brick, tennis, secure sign-in, approve. So here you can see my NAS at home. So I'm not trying to do anything. Source destination. Oh, so here, for example, you can read this from about 5 millimeters.
Yes.
But basically here, as in every file manager, you can see the directories, and here is, in fact, my files for Warpstock.
What did we just see with the two-factor identification?
What you saw was I log in, then on my telephone, and he asked me, on sign in, on the app on my telephone, I have to approve this sign in.
So you click a button on the phone, and the phone is sending a message back to
Synology.
Synology.
And
At your house or Synology?
I think Synology, their website. I think that's the way it goes.
And then their website is sending a message to your house?
Or to that's the way it works.
The NAS is logged into Synology's site all the time.
Yeah.
It's like log me in, the
Yeah.
remote control
Yeah.
application.
So you're always connected to the mothership of Synology?
Yes.
In this case, yes, because I'm using Quick Connect, and Quick Connect is a sort of DNS. So it's just a name that Synology gives out and will connect to my laptop.
You don't have to use it. I don't use it.
Like how kills your internet connection at home, you won't be able to log in into your NAS, even if you're sitting at home directly in front of it.
I can, because then it's via the local network. But I mean, if there's no power supply at home, I've got another problem. but there is always things that can happen which will block it. But for 90% of the work, I have in my home the UPS also connected to my router, sorry, and to everything for the direct switching to my NAS. So I can get into my NAS if that bit of the power works. So I have also the UPS connection to the glass glass fiber. Yeah, it's the same word. Glass fiber connection. Yes. So if anything goes wrong, I've still got that bit and I can get into it. That's basically what I did.
And
Yes.
I have the same situation, but my fiber company is late into the market, and
Yes.
so they don't have IPv4 addresses.
Oh.
So I have to. I need a connection with IP version 6,
Yeah.
which we didn't have in ArcaOS, but
No.
currently I was in Italy and roaming IPv4, okay, no IP version 6.
But
Same here in the Netherlands,
yeah.
at home with Vodafone,
Yeah.
no problem.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have no chance to reach my NAS,
Yeah.
but that's another additional problem layer which is looping around. If you have only
IP6.
carrier grade NAT
Yeah.
address,
Yeah.
then you won't be able to reach your NAS.
But don't.
ArcaOS.
But some routers have the ability to give you a local IP4 address. So then you should be able to get in.
Yeah, it does not work if your outside public address is only with version 6 and is in the carrier grade NAT range. Okay.
Glenn wants to say something.
So, no, I have not done this. I am not a network guy, I'm a systems guy, but you can load a separate OS on your router, some of them.
Yeah.
A lot of Linksys is up that will do that, where you should be able to route. Externally come in as V6, and once you're in as V6.
You could go into, yeah, that should be possible. Agreed.
Oh, there's something I'd like to add for what people don't know. A lot of new cable modems, for example, with the Dutch ISP Ziggo, they have IPv4, but the trick happens at the ISP. Because if you look closely into the configuration, you'll see that because of a lack of IPv4 addresses, they call, I think, what's called Net64 off the top of my head. The terminology is different. Effectively, what they do to cut back on the amount of globally routed IPv4 addresses that are available, they fake a local IPv4 address on your modem. And that is then a local class A address, somewhere with the 10 range. That goes to the ISP, and there it gets translated into a publicly routable IP address. So in other words, you can't put up a port forward because you don't have a global IP address, just to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So it's something on the ISP side that you can't fix.
Quick Connect, just for, does two possibilities. One is via port forwarding, and the other is via the IP address.
Port forwarding is going to help you in this case.
No, but I'm saying they have two versions.
At least in the US,
Yeah.
I never get the cable company modem.
Oh.
I use my home for the exact reason where then I can control what's out there.
In Holland, at this moment in time, they have to be able to allow you to use your own modem into the cable, and they have to give you the connection details. So that's another way around. Okay, another question.
I programmed on ISP router, I programmed that demilitarized zone, DMZ.
Yeah.
So it goes DMZ to my router, and then I do everything.
Yeah.
Or I can connect directly.
Yeah.
What I do is I use the DNS no IP
Yeah.
thing. So I have a dynamic IP, but is translated to an address,
Yeah.
so I can get to my link session directly.
Good idea. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there's two microphones. Sorry. Yes,
Yeah.
Alex.
So what I do is, as I mentioned before, I don't use the Synology for Connect.
Not necessary, but
Yeah. So I have OpenVPN installed. It's one of the packages that you can install
Yeah.
in Synology. So I can connect to it remotely if I have an OpenVPN client on my phone, for example,
Yeah.
or on most operating systems. Unfortunately, it doesn't work for Mac OS because we don't have the right driver for OpenVPN, I think. But the advantage is I don't need to keep my NAS logged into Synology all the time, or even have it.
well, this isn't.
But
Yeah.
my ISP is it's a dynamic DNS,
Yeah.
TCP address, so it changes from time to time.
Yeah.
Doesn't change that often, like a couple times a year,
Oh.
unfortunately, or anytime my modem gets rebooted.
Yeah.
So what I do is I have a Linux server on my local network. Every hour, it checks my public IP address.
Okay.
It has a cache, like in the temporary directory, it says what the last address was. Every
Yeah.
hour it checks, and if it's changed,
Yes.
it sends me an email to my IMAP account saying this is now my address.
Okay.
So I can
Yeah.
update my IBDN config and just config to that, connect to that IP address from anywhere. And then once I'm connected, I can do like a Samba connection to my drive,
Yeah.
or even Windows makes it difficult, but you can do
Yeah.
it from Windows
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
But yeah, for Mac OS in a VM in this case, it works perfectly. It's just
Yeah.
seamless, like
Yeah.
at home.
Well, of course, there are so many network possibilities to get to your NAS. I remember years back, there was a company that did, in fact, your dynamic address to your computer, and that was basically a DNS service that they did for a small charge. But that company went and stopped because too many people, also with the NASes, with the routers, they already have that function built in, so there was for them no. But you have to look at what your router does and what your NAS does, what connection philosophy you will use. But you know, I'm just saying, for me, this is the way I did it. It works. I'm not logged into Synology all the time. It's only when I use Quick Connect. I can do it via VPN, but I haven't got that set up. I've got enough problems on my plate without having even more, you know, just if it works. It's like the 2FA, what you get on Synology, you sometimes get, you have a login at this address, IP address. And every time I look that up, because I think, have I done that then on my phone or something? It is the IP address of the KPN, which is my provider. And it seems to come in all over the country. So, you know, you've just logged in Utrecht. Well, I'm in South Holland, you know. Oh no, it's KPN and it's me. But that's the things happen. Yes, I was going to say. Any more questions? Once, twice, sold. Gentlemen, thank you for attention. I hope I've given you some information. If you have questions, you can talk to me privately over a cup of coffee and a lot of money. Thank you.